Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'll show you how I hand build these envelope bottles. The materials you're going to need to build these are about 4 pounds of clay, rolled out on a slab roller or using your own rolling pin, a needle tool or scoring tool, a hard rib, a pencil, an X-Acto knife, underglaze of your choice, or white decorating slip, paintbrush, scissors, sponge, and a small loop tool. The first thing you're going to need to do is roll out a piece of clay that's big enough to fit the design you've made for your jar. You're going to need to cut out 2 pieces of it. So just make sure it's big enough. And then you're going to take a rolling pin and make it a little thinner. If you come across any bubbles, you can just scratch into them before you compress. And then you can compress your slab down, and that will get rid of any bubbles. Flip it over and compress, and then you're ready to cut out your pieces. So what I like to do is I like to take a needle tool and trace my shape first instead of cutting straight down, because I find you get a lot of imperfections when you cut with your needle tool. So I trace it, and then I will take an X-Acto knife and cut straight down. So don't forget, when you're cutting your second shape, you can flip it, or you can just remember to flip your slab piece when you're done. I've realized after I've rolled my clay out even more that I have an extra piece of clay, which I'm going to keep for the base of my jug. There. So with my X-Acto knife, I'm going to cut out my piece. I don't do one giant cut. I remove pieces at a time so that I'm more careful with it. And then I'm going to take these and stick them in front of the fan to set up a bit. So like I said, I'm going to take that extra slab, I'm going to actually take a couple extra pieces because this clay is wet enough, and I'm going to stick them on my wear board to use for later to close up seams and any place I need extra clay. And I can put that right. Once that clay has been put away, I'm going to create my design of what I want to go on the outside of my bottle. I'm going to create a simple design, nothing too intricate, because this form of envelope bottles or vases is using hand-built technique is a more primitive way of making things out of clay. So keeping with a simple design will go with that same aesthetic, and it'll just make it easier to transfer my image. If you get too intricate, the transfer is not going to work right. Transfers can be created on newsprint or rice paper, and I'm using rice paper here. So I have this designer liner. It's essentially black underglaze, specially formulated to come out of these little fine tip bottles easier. So I'm going to trace my design onto the rice paper, and I always test it out first. That's why you see those lines and that squiggly on the outside of my design. That way I know how it's coming out, or because you really don't want air bubbles, because you don't want to try to push out an air bubble and it just kind of spray out everywhere. So you're going to take that and let it set in front of the fan, and once it's dry enough to the touch, you can start painting in your colored underglazes. Again, I'm sticking to simple colors with my simple pattern, only 2 colors. And remember, when you're doing a transfer, what goes down first is what's going to be on top. So you have to think in the reverse when you're painting. So it's okay that I'm covering my lines with my underglaze, because the line is what you're going to see first. Once you're finished painting, you're going to put this to the side and let it dry. You don't want to see that shine anymore. And then you're going to take white decorating slip and you're going to paint both of your cutouts. And you'll see here I paint up and down, side to side, and this will give me full coverage. I'm going to let that sit as well, and once your white decorating slip no longer has a sheen to it, but it's still tacky, then it's ready to apply your transfer. And your transfer sheet should also be dry to the touch. So just to make it easier on myself, I cut out my image then I'm going to place that down where I want it to go by gently pressing it down onto the slab, being careful not to press too hard, but with enough force to make sure the entire rice paper circle is touching the clay. Now I'm going to take a damp sponge and lightly press the sponge onto the image. I'm not smearing the image, I'm just pressing down. And then I'll take my soft rubber rib, the red rib, and kind of scrape it down onto, just to reinforce what I did with the sponge. And you can see, like, as I lift, wherever a color's not coming up, I'm gonna put that paper back down and re-scrape and try to get that, all the color, the whole image onto my slab. You can see I'm still not getting everything, so I will try it one more time. Do not press hard with your red rib, you will dig into your clay. This video is sped up so it looks like I'm kind of putting a lot of force into it. I'm really taking my time and pressing down. If you need to add more water, and continue to smooth down the piece to try to get all the color. And if this is what you get, this is what you get. And then now we're ready to put our jar together. So I'm taking this beveled or angled slab cutter, and I'm going to cut away at an angle on the edges so that when I put my bottle together, I get a tinier seam. But I'm also testing it here to only do that on one side and leave the other side without it. So I took my second slab, flipped it over. You want to make sure you're cutting on your side that hasn't been, that didn't receive the white slip. I'm making sure things match up. I'm going to take some newspaper, I'm crumpling it up, and this is going to stay inside the bottle the whole time. So even when you put it off to bisque fire, it's going to be in there, and it's okay, it'll burn off. Now I'm going to do the infamous slip or scratch and attach, slip and score, whatever you call it. Add some water. You don't need to use your clay slip. Water is enough to get it to attach. And then I'm going to pinch it together and seal it up kind of like an envelope. Here I'm taking the neck of it. I want it to be more open. I don't want it to be flat. So I'm using the shape of my passive hand to hold around it, and then I'm pressing with my dominant hand into my passive hand, and that will give me my shape of what I want. And just remember, if your clay gets a little more leather hard at this point, do go ahead and add more scratching with your X-Acto knife or your needle tool, whatever you're using, because the more scratches, the better the attachment. Think of it as a zipper. You're adding more surface area for your clay particles to come together and attach. And the more of those that are together, the stronger and less likely your piece will break. Here to the other side that I didn't cut that beveled edge on, I'm adding some coils just so that I can kind of roll over that edge so that it gets a tighter seam. It's hard to see in this image, but where my hand is on the other side of that coil. So it will come together, and you'll find that doing it this way or with the beveled edge, you get the same result. So again, more scratching. I made that scratching tool out of just some clay and some sewing pins. So that's a good project you can make. I think it's great to have your own set of tools that you've made, because you don't have to buy everything. So I push that down. More scratching. If you want to, before you even put it together, you can scratch around the entire edge of both slabs. You don't have to do it as you're going. It might be easier to do it the other way. Okay, once they're attached, I'm going to take a wet brush and I'm going to add water in that way to make sure I get it in there because it's easier. And then I'm going to compress the seams together so that we no longer see where those two pieces of clay come together. I find using the back of my nail works better than my fingertip or a sponge because you can really compress it in. And then clean up with that's a finishing sponge. Now I don't like how narrow and flat this bottle got, so I'm actually going to kind of open it up again, and it's wet enough that I can do this without it breaking, and I'm going to just add a little more paper. You need to be gentle, but you'd be surprised, it's pretty flexible at this point. And I'm going to kind of push it out. You don't have to finish this in one day. Take your time, look at it. If it doesn't look like how you want, you can open it back up. See how I have it standing? You can see it's really only pushed out right under where that image is, and it's not going to stand well, especially with this funky shape I've created. So I need to push it out. So I'm going to put my hand inside and I'm going to brace it with my other hand, and it's going to come apart because I'm pushing them away, but that's okay because I'm going to go back with my hand on the inside. Push it out, and then I can close it back together. There we go. Now it's going to stand nicely. I won't have any issues of it falling over in the kiln. So those are things you need to consider. I'm going to compress again. Make sure that my inside seams in the neck of the bottle are closed. And I'm going to kind of clean up those edges at the top too, because we don't want them to be sharp. You don't want to cut your hand on it. So once you've fixed all your edges and everything looks like it's closed up well, you can leave it to dry for a bit, because now you want it to get to the leather hard stage if you want to do any carving to it. since it's standing and before we get to leather hard, we're going to add the base. So you're just going to stick it on your clay, and I'm going to do a rolled edge bottom, so it's not going to be the exact shape of the bottom. It's going to be a little bigger, and actually what I've done is I've traced around the edge of it, and now I'm going to, I did not cut it out of the slab, I just traced around it, and now I'm going to cut into it my scoring tool, which does a way better job than just one needle tool or my X-Acto knife. Look how awesome that is. So I'll scratch the slab, and I'm going to scratch the bottom of my bottle, leaving that paper in there. I'm going to add some water as my slip. And then I'm going to put it back on. And it's going to, you'll feel it, it'll suction onto that slab, making it permanent. So I'm going to push it down, press it in there, and now I'm going to cut my clay away. And it's just slightly bigger than the base. Once I have it off, I'm happy with how it looks. I'm going to put it on this sponge because it's still pretty wet. I'm going to press it down onto it, and then I'm going to take this mini roller and I'm actually going to roll it onto my jug, my bottle. I love this edge. Rhonda taught me this base. And for a while I was doing this on everything. So I'm going to do any final cleaning up before I stick it back in front of the fan to get to its leather hard stage. Because once it gets there, you can't really manipulate it too much. You can take away from it, but adding to it's going to get harder. And rounding, pulling out pieces is going to get harder. So I'm adding those edges, that lid part didn't come together, so I just add a little coil in there, fill it in, just so it looks like it's one piece there. All right, now we're in the carving. So it's set up. I'm going to take this rounded carving tool, and I'm just going to start cutting away in rows. This is very therapeutic. I do suggest trying this on something at least once. Now when I started working on this, the shape of this bottle made me think of like an organ. So that's why I cut the neck into that kind of like trachea sort of thing. On the other side, same tool, I just cut out these designs and then more of the rounded shape. And this will, when I high fire it, will leave both colors showing. It just looks really nice. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.